under the law, everyone is presumed innocent until they're found guilty in the court of law. With this disclaimer out of the way, let's get started. Our story today takes us to January 8th of 2024. That was 3 days ago. To India's National Highway number 48, which goes through Goa to the state of Karnataka, where a 39-year-old tech CEO named Suchna Seth is on the road being driven from Goa to Karnataka in an Innova car by a man named Roy Thomas. She has been in the taxi for about an hour and a half when the taxi driver gets a phone call from an unknown number. Initially, he doesn't pay heed, but when it rings the second time, he finally picks up the call. That's when the male voice on the other side identifies himself as police officer Paresh Nayak and lets the driver know that he would like to speak to the female passenger that he has been driving. Taken aback from this request, which almost sounded like a command, the taxi driver Roy relents, and that's when the police officer speaks to the woman and demands to know where her 4-year-old son is. To answer this question, Suchna calmly replies that she had dropped her son off at a friend's home. Next, she returns the phone back to Roy, who's instructed by the police officer on the other side of the phone not to hang up, but to speak to the inspector in his native Konkani language and not respond in English at all. After listening to the instructions by the police officer, Roy continues to calmly drive on the national highway for a little while, and then he takes a detour and brings Suchna to a police station in the Chitradurga district of Karnataka. So far in the journey, Roy has not witnessed any red flags in the passenger that he was ferrying from Goa to Karnataka. For context, that's a drive that takes more than 6 hours and it's about 340 kilometers of distance. Other than the unusual request to be driven to another state, nothing else had struck him as odd about this entire situation. Again, just for context, people usually take a flight from Goa to Karnataka for this distance. A few minutes later, Roy drove into the Emalanga police station, and Suchna, the 39-year-old female passenger, was forced to get off from the car and was immediately taken into the police station. The police brought up Suchna's 4-year-old son again and demanded to know where he was. Then they confronted her with photos of bloodstains that they had found in a service apartment called Sol Banyan Grande in the Kondulam area of Goa, which is a beautiful, picturesque location known as a holiday getaway. Suchna had been living in the Sol Banyan Grande for the past 3 days in room number 404 along with her son. She had checked in on Friday. Her son at this time was barely 4 years old. Upon being confronted with the pictures, the tech CEO Suchna Seth showed the police detectives her left wrist and they could see deep gashes. She explained to them that it's her blood that the staff at the surface apartment had seen all over the walls of the room that she had rented for the past 3 days. Suchna was then forced by the police to divulge something truly horrifying. The luggage that she had been carrying with her contained the lifeless body of her 4-year-old son. Though what Suchna has done defies all human understanding, but cases of familicides, which is defined as killing of one's family, are found all over the world. But statistically, the majority of people who kill their families are usually men. A mother killing her own child is extremely unusual, and by doing so, Suchna has joined a notorious club of women such as Diana Down, Maribel Tinning, Andrea Yates. These are all women who are currently serving a life sentence in different parts of USA for killing their own children. If you hear any news about this case in the past 24 hours, every single news report goes out of its way to point out that Sushna was going through a divorce, which is getting quite common in modern India. However, it's still frowned upon by a majority of Indians. Another thing that has been highlighted in the news in the past day is that Sushna was recently informed that she will be sharing custody of her 4-year-old son with her former husband, a man called Venkatraman, who currently lives in Indonesia. She was told that she will be required to let her son visit his father at least once a week, especially on the weekends. This in itself could have been one of the motives why Suchna did what she did to her son. Research on the psychology of people who kill their families, also known as family annihilators, point out that when mothers usually kill their children, their motive might be altruistic, which means in their mind, such mothers think that they're doing their children a favor by killing them. These mothers tend to think that they're saving their children from future doom. Sushna might have been going through some sort of psychotic episode or might be dealing with depression. Another thing pointed out by research is that women who usually kill their children usually have unwanted children. I don't think that would be the case in this particular instance, since Suchna had her child at the age of 35 and she was quite mature. It's also been reported that Suchna had slashed her left wrist. As a matter of fact, if you see any footage of this case, you will see that there's clearly a bandage tied on Suchna's left wrist. We can speculate that she might be dealing with some sort of depression. Clearly, the onset of divorce, along with her high-powered career, might have been too much for her to take. And then the new information about sharing custody with her former partner might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. By the way, Suchna is an exceptionally accomplished woman. In fact, in the year 2021, Suchna was named as one of the 100 most brilliant women in artificial intelligence ethics. She hails from the state of West Bengal and is an artificial intelligence expert for the past 12 years and has been working as a data scientist and is the founder and chief executive officer of a Bengaluru-based artificial intelligence startup called Mindful AI Lab. She even worked on some AI and internet-related projects with Harvard University, according to her LinkedIn profile. Before founding her startup, the Mindful AI Lab in Bengaluru, Suchna was a senior data analyst scientist at Bloomberg Commerce. She designed several products for price optimization. She even filed 2 patents recently. So clearly we're dealing with an absolutely brilliant woman. However, brilliant or not, stress and depression can strike anyone at any time, and everything that the news is saying so far is mere speculation. The stress seems to have brought increasing challenges in her personal life. It's been reported in the media that the AI startup that she was running seems to have no fixed address. It seems like she was doing all her work from a co-working space. Although her LinkedIn profile suggests that she registered her startup in September 2020. As of the recording of this video, the Goa police is visiting her office/co-working space, among other places, to collect information so that they can build a case against her. It's been reported that Suchna used to live in an apartment in Bengaluru's Thanisandra area, but she had vacated that apartment around 4 months ago. In the meanwhile, Dr. Kumar Nayak finished the post-mortem on the 4-year-old child and confirmed what everyone had feared the most, that Suchna had strangled her own boy and smothered him to death. This post-mortem was only carried out after the child's father, who currently resides in Indonesia, was able to make his way back to India and give consent to the police and the authorities to conduct the post-mortem. Both Suchna and Venkatraman were apparently in the last stages of their separation, and their divorce was just about to be finalized. The stress brought on by the divorce might have been one of the reasons why she did the unthinkable. Certainly, it's not an excuse, but it's an explanation. Some pundits in the media have speculated that Suchna's motive might have been revenge, but all these are mere speculation and hypotheses. I also saw a couple of tweets which seemed to highlight that Suchna was a champion of equality of opportunity for women in technology. And the tweets seem to be making connections that since Suchna is a feminist, hence she has done the unthinkable. However, simply demanding equality of opportunity doesn't make anyone a killer. Her demands seem to be reasonable, however, her act of smothering her child to death is truly heinous. One can clearly see parallels of the cases that have happened in other jurisdictions with Suchna's case. This also reminds me of an ancient story. The story of the Greek play Medea, which was written by Euripides in 431 BC. In this plot, Medea, who was a former princess of the kingdom somewhere in Greece, comes to know that her husband Jason has been cheating on her and has taken another wife. In an act of revenge, Medea murders Jason's new wife and her own 2 sons. There's also a parallel connection between a 2016 case of Christy Sheets, whose husband coincidentally was also called Jason, and Christy killed 2 of her grown daughters. One daughter was Madison, 17 years old, and Taylor, 22 years old, on June 24th of 2016. She did this in front of her husband so that she could traumatize him forever, and then she was shortly killed herself. Many talking heads on news channels have already demanding that Suchna should be given the strictest punishment under the Indian Penal Code. And I think most of us agree to that, but we would also say that all the cases should be seen and examined free from a spirit of retribution. Some have even speculated in the news that Suchna might plead insanity. The factor that a person is suffering from mental illness by itself is actually not sufficient to prove that the person is insane under Indian Penal Code. The rationale of insanity as a defense comes under Section 84 of the Indian Penal Code of 1860. But the burden of proof to prove that you're insane always lies on the defendant. The Indian Penal Code, very interestingly, doesn't even give a exact definition of insanity and not an exact definition of the soundness of mind. However, the courts have mainly treated insanity and soundness of mind as a equivalent. In Suchna's case, she might not be able to establish soundness of mind since she packed her child's body into a suitcase and carried it across state lines and did seem to have made some rudimentary attempts to conceal her crime. She seems to have consciousness of guilt because she even tried to kill herself. So clearly it might be really hard for her defense in the future to establish that Suchna did not have the right frame of mind when she killed her 4-year-old son. The truth of the matter is that an innocent child has lost his life, and it seems like his only fault was that he was born to a brilliant but to a clearly disturbed mother. In the last part I had recorded in early January, I had speculated about Suchna's mental state. I wanted to give you an update which was made known by the Goa police on February 14th of 2024. The Goa police told a children's court that Suchna's mental health assessment did not find any case of psychopathology and that she gave, quote, clear and rational answers, unquote, during her medical examination. This assessment was done because Suchna's father had applied to the court to compel the police to get her medically evaluated to assess her mental health. Her dad is concerned is, quote, that she was suffering from a mental illness and has been incapable of making her defense due to that illness. He further said that she is in denial of her illness, unquote. He submitted this as an application to the courts. After I taped the video, which I released on January 10th, the Indian Express reporter Pawan Singh Chadda further reported that Suchna's husband, whose name is Venkat, has requested a meeting with her and that the police allowed that meeting and facilitated it inside the police station where she is in custody. Venkat, the husband, apparently asked Suchna why she killed their child. She responded by saying that she has not committed the crime. The motive so far seems to be that Suchna has been upset due to the family court orders. The court case, which was going on for a year, finally convened on November 20th of 2023. The court passed an order saying that Venkat, the child's father, will be permitted video calls once every 15 days. The father is supposed to meet the child every Sunday physically from morning till evening. In fact, Venkat saw his child only twice after that court ruling on November 20th, and the last time he physically saw his child was on December 10th of 2023. Since then, Suchna has not allowed Venkat to meet his son, and the night before the murder, she had sent her husband a WhatsApp message with the location of a place saying that Venkat could meet his son on Sunday, January 7, 2024, which was the day she actually killed her child. And she killed her child in a place called Goa, which, just for context, is about 500 kilometers away from the place where her husband was waiting, which is another state called Bangalore. And just for context, it takes about 8 hours to drive from Bangalore to Goa, and Bangalore is now called Bengaluru. On the morning of January 7, 2024, the father was waiting in a mall at 10 a.m. He was very eager to meet his son, as you can imagine. He had not seen his child for about a month. He continued waiting there for a whole hour and sent a series of WhatsApp messages to his wife Suchna. He even emailed her a few times, but she never responded. Later in the day, which was January 7th, he was supposed to fly to Jakarta on business. So he went ahead and flew to Jakarta, not knowing what had happened. On Monday morning, when he was in Jakarta, the Goa police contacted him, and unfortunately he was informed that his child has been murdered. In the questioning so far, Suchna has not admitted to killing her child. She's only confessed to putting the child's body in a bag, and she has confessed to slashing her own wrist. Even if she doesn't confess, the police have enough evidence to keep her in custody until she goes to the court. The evidence contains things like boarding pass of the flight that she took, which of course had her and her child in 2 separate seats. She took that flight from Bangalore to Goa. The police also have CCTV footage and witness accounts of the Airbnb staff where she was staying, and everyone saw her with her 4-year-old son. The police have ruled out the involvement of anyone else, so even if she doesn't confess, it would not matter much. It would not be permissible in the court anyway. Just someone's confession is not permitted in the Indian courts. Police need that confession along with a series of other evidences. So the supporting evidence is actually what matters a lot. So if even if she doesn't admit her guilt, it's completely irrelevant. The police have still not filed a charge sheet, but every week ever since she was taken into custody, they have filed papers to extend her custody in the court, and every single time the court has permitted the extension of that custody. Well, hopefully she goes to the court soon, and we will get to know perhaps one day why she did this absolutely senseless crime. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to consider subscribing to this channel. Until next week, take care.